Well, Reuben, it wasn't pretty, but the
No, it
Eagles
was
got
not.
it done. 20-16, they beat Washington, and now we wait.
Now we wait. But I'll tell you what, whatever happens from here on out, they're a winning team. To get to 9-7 after what this team was last year. I mean, they were the worst team in the NFC last year. There were, I think, only 2 teams in the NFL that had more losses than the Eagles. To get from that to where they are now, I don't care who they played. I don't care who the quarterbacks were. You're 9-7 after a 4-win season. That's a heck of an accomplishment, and Nick Sirianni deserves a ton of credit for that.
He absolutely does. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan with Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. This is the post-game pod, and we promise if the Eagles clinch late Sunday night, there will be a playoff clinching podcast. We'll kind of, if that happens, we'll get into really what's changed for this team and the journey they've gone on. But this is just about the game. 20-16, a final score. We're going to talk about Jalen Hurts, what he showed in this game. Rodney McLeod seals the game with a big interception. The defense shows up in the second half. And then at the end, we'll get it into a Dave's negativity corner. But, Rube, let's start off big picture because, I mean, it was another slow start. But in a way, like, these games are so symbolic in a way. They feel like microcosms of the season because they stumble out of the gate and they have this composure to them, and then they get it done. Would you like to see them come out fast? Like, absolutely. But I think they still show a lot in these come-from-behind wins.
Yeah, I think that's – you're going to have both things. I mean, I was just working this out. They've been outscored 35-7 in their last 5 first quarters. The rest of the game, the second through fourth quarters, and this is starting with the first Giants game, which they lost, up through today. In the second through fourth quarter, they've outscored their 5 opponents 114-39. So, I mean, look, and we've been saying this, you're not going to beat a good team if you get into a 10-0 hole. It's just not going to happen. They've now done it twice with Washington. It's the first time in Eagles history they've beaten the same team twice in a season after trailing by 10 points after the first quarter. In fact, it's the first time since 1988 they've won 2 games in a season after trailing by 10 points after the first quarter. You're just not going to win many games like that. And they're lucky that the opponents they've faced for the last month and a half, for the most part, have not been great teams. But, you see a lot of good teams lose to bad teams. That's the way the NFL is. And if you can keep your composure and stay calm and not panic and stick to your principles and not hang your head. I mean, we've seen teams react in really negative, destructive ways when they're trailing after, you get down 2 touchdowns or whatever. This team never does that. And so while it's a negative that they keep getting in these holes, it is a positive that they seem to have a strategy for climbing out of them. And that's just to stay calm, to stay together. And like Jalen, I think it was Jalen just said, to just keep grinding. And that's the story of the season. That's the story of their last 4 wins. I mean, all 4 of them, well, 3 of them, they've been trailing after the first quarter of the Giants game. It was scoreless. Neither team was doing anything. So it's good and bad. I mean, I think there's a lot of I think when you can overcome adversity, no matter whether it's self-caused or caused by another team, if you can overcome it, that speaks volumes about your players, your leaders, and your coaches.
Yeah, and it was interesting. Nick Sirianni talked about the calm that was with the team during when they were losing, during the early portions of that game. And he mentioned, all the leaders and the guys who have been there before. But the whole time he's talking about it, I'm sure you were doing the same thing. You're like, well, that's Jalen. So much of it has to come from the quarterback who it's the poise he shows for a second-year player. It really is impressive. And this whole season has been about nitpicking and trying to figure out whether he's the guy and whether he's not the guy. And that question, I guess, persists. But the poise he shows on a week-to-week basis, it's unbelievable. It is. And you think about that's just his personality. He's just calm in these really tough moments. And the one play that sticks out to me is that pitch play to Boston Scott on the goal line. And how smooth was he getting tripped up by, I think it was Jack Stoll, because they were tackle over on that play. So Mylotta was on the right side. but I think it was Jack Stoll stepped on him. He's fallen down. He like pitches it over his head to Boston Scott. I mean, the poise to make that play is unreal.
Yeah, and we've seen it all year. It's interesting. It's we've seen it in training camp. We've seen it at practice. We've seen it in joint workouts. But now you're seeing it in must-win games in a playoff hunt. And it kind of really, like, I thought today it really struck me, just more than the other games, just because there's so much chaos around him. I mean, the offense was okay. They just never really had the ball in the first half. They moved the ball. They had the 1 4th down that they didn't convert. But the defense, was really having a tough time of it. And there's all these things happening, and he is just this, like, I don't want to say robot, because that just that maybe has negative connotations, but he really is. He's like Mr. Spock out there. Star Trek, no emotions. Nothing phases him, nothing bothers him. He's freaking Mr. Spock out there. And, I think a team on both sides of the ball feeds off its quarterback and kind of takes the personality of the quarterback. And I think that's the case here. I think we're seeing that. It's funny because I think Jalen helps keep Nick. Like, Nick was asked about how he helps keep Jalen calm, and I think Jalen helps keep Nick calm as well.
Yeah, I mean, Nick's way more fiery than Jalen.
Absolutely,
like he definitely has a shorter fuse emotionally.
Yeah, I don't think Jalen has a fuse, or he has an endless fuse.
I mean, it wasn't even in the game. After the game, when those fans tumbled out of the stands, just the way he handled that, and it might sound stupid, but that kind of that shows you his personality. He watches these fans tumble from the stands down right in front of him. He looks at them, makes sure they're all right, smiles, and takes a photo with them. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's ice water in his veins, man. And I don't know if he'll ever be a great quarterback, but those are the things that impress the hell out of me. They really do.
That impresses me more than throwing for 400 yards, in a loss, whatever, putting up great stats. And, his numbers were okay today. I thought he was really good for what the game was. Didn't throw any touchdowns, didn't run for any touchdowns, but, he kept the sticks moving, he put up points. And, he ran more than he has lately. I think obviously the ankle's not as much of an issue as it has been. I thought he threw the ball really well. I like the fact that they won this game without the running game ever really getting going. And, Boston had a couple good runs. I think Jordan had one good run, and Jalen had a couple. But it wasn't one of those games where they just ran all over a team and trampled them and then, just kept hammering it. Nothing came easy for them today. And in that environment, Jalen thrived and did everything he had to do to get this team over the line somehow with a win.
Yeah, there were some plays that he made that you go, wow, like that. It was an 18-yard scramble. There was the play to Greg Ward where he bought time, and that was a 3rd and 14. There was the play to Dallas. And he told us the play didn't get in.
The play didn't get in. He said he made that one up on the spot, which is amazing. I thought he threw the ball really well on the move. He was under a lot of pressure at times. He made a lot of throws across his body, off the wrong leg, didn't set his feet, but did it accurately. There was no the throw to Rager, which at first I thought was just kind of like, he's just rolling out, he's throwing it away. I mean, Rager should have caught that.
At least come back and get a DPI.
Yeah. So that was a big 3rd down as well. So I thought he did a lot of things that don't show up in the box score. But the biggest thing was just his demeanor. It probably doesn't make for great interviews. I mean, although I really enjoy his interviews because I think he's really insightful, but he's so flatline. And times like this, it really pays off. And look, when you're a running back or a receiver or a lineman and you're down 10 points, things are going awry. You're like, we have this opportunity to clinch a playoff spot or almost. and we're losing to Washington by double digits. And you look at the quarterback, and he's like all business, no emotion, not hanging his head, not throwing his helmet or anything. He's just next play. It's tremendous value in that.
Yeah, and I did like the anecdote Nick Sirianni gave us about, during this game, Jalen Hurts went to him and said, Coach, call whatever you need to call, we'll run it, which is basically like, hey, we all know the ankle's not 100%, but call it. Whatever you need. He knew the situation, and that's impressive to me because there were a few plays that now you look back and think about it, you're like, okay, that's probably why Nick called it. There was the QB keeper. I mean, I didn't think we'd see a QB keeper today. That was like a 6-yard gain. It was big 6 yards.
Yeah.
So I like that. I think Nick likes it too. It seems to mean a lot to him to have Jalen come to him and say that. And Nick talked about how important it is to have toughness. And you talked about it earlier, but a team takes after its quarterback in a lot of ways. And toughness is another one. They take after him with the calmness, but everyone knows he's dealing with an injury, and to have that happen, I think it does mean a lot to this team.
Hey, there's so much to explore in Valley Forge and Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Montgomery County is composed of charming towns and main streets, each with its own personality, style, and unique vibe. Whether you're looking to get away with family or enjoy a special trip with friends, leave behind the stress of planning and use our guide to find some of the most amazing things to do. Explore which town and which main street suits you the best, or visit them all. Visit makeitmainstreet.com to plan your getaway today.
So, Rube, let's flip to the other side of the ball, the defense, because I was sitting on the edge of my seat at the end of that game, and then Rodney McLeod makes the play of the day. It was great coverage by Anthony Harris, and Heineke soars that ball. The pick itself was tremendous. I mean, that was a great catch.
Yeah, and when you watch it in slow motion, like there's no way he's going to get to the ball. This is a guy coming off an ACL, a guy whose reps have been, declining, and a guy who admittedly has not been the player he's used to being. Was Rodney 31, 32? I guess he's 31 now. For him to get there, like it would have been a great breakup, if he just knocked it down, if it was fourth down or whatever. But to catch it, to get his hands on it, and then to keep it off the ground, or at least when it hit the ground, he had possession of it, had control of it, get his hands under there, and then hang on to it. Ball game. I mean, I think everyone who knows Rodney is so happy for him, because this is a guy who look, it can't be easy to have he's used to playing 100% of the snaps year after year, and he's coming off his second ACL. And about a month ago, they went to this three-way safety rotation with Epps and Anthony Harris and McLeod, and he's been playing a lot fewer snaps. But the last two games, he's had huge picks, and that kind of
plays of the game in the last 2 weeks.
I mean, I thought the pick last week, which was at the beginning of the third quarter, was really the momentum changer in that game.
And then he had the pass breakup on the Singleton pick six.
Right, that's right. So it's great to see Rodney. He's one of the few remaining guys from the Super Bowl run. He's a true leader, and he's been a playmaker. That's one of the, that's one I tried to find. I'm trying to remember the last time. It's probably Slay had an interception in back-to-back games, but the stat head streak finder was crashing on me, which drives me crazy. But yeah, for it was such an athletic play, and that's not really Rodney's game. I mean, he's a physical, tough, he'll hit you type of guy. But it was, I mean, I don't know how he made that play. I mean, he dove. He was like horizontal. I mean, that's a great play by a wide receiver if he makes it. For a 31-year-old safety coming off his second ACL in 3 years to make that play is remarkable.
Yeah, and it was pretty cool. During this last week, I saw him post on social media reflecting it had been a year since his ACL surgery, and just kind of reflecting on the road back. I mean, I remember when he tore his ACL last year, he was very honest about, like, maybe that's it. Maybe that's just it for me. So to see him come back and play the way he's played, see him make that play today, it's cool. It's a cool moment, and I don't know if he'll be here next year. We'll see. They have some questions to answer, but all of a sudden, back-to-back weeks for him to make huge plays down the stretch, it bodes pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. And, this isn't a defense that makes a ton of those plays. I mean, they don't get a lot of interceptions. They don't get a lot of sacks. They had 3 today, I think. So, I mean, to make that play when they needed it. I mean, Washington had a lot of momentum there. There wasn't going to be any time for the Eagles to, they got the ball back. There was going to be 8 seconds left or something. It was, yeah, it was, it was one of the big plays of the year. It was one of the handful of biggest defensive play. It might have been the best defensive play of the year by this team.
Yeah, you can certainly make that case. Now, defensively overall, rough first half, shut them out in the second half. What do you make of it? What do you make of what this defense went through today?
Yeah, I thought the difference was pressure. And I know Nick said that there really wasn't any difference. Heineke just made some incredible throws in the first half, which he did. He made some. He's like that though. He makes plays he has no business making. Yeah, that's true. But I thought once they pressured him, I think he only threw for 70 yards or something in the second half. His completion percentage was high, but there's a bunch of underneath stuff to the backs. You could see him getting a little skittish. And that's why that last drive surprised me, because I really thought in that 3rd and 10 conversion just can't happen, but because that's a ball game right there. But I just thought they finally got some pressure. Sweat was huge. I thought Hargrave had one of his better games of the second half of the season. They just, even Barnett had a pressure there.
Williams had a few nice plays.
Yeah, he did, and Avery did too. Avery had a couple.
Picked a good time for his first sack, and they were rushing him with some games up front.
Yeah, they were. So I thought that was the biggest difference. That first half was excruciating because, I mean, they just couldn't get off the field. But I thought holding him to 3s after the first touchdown instead of 7s was huge, even though at the time it seemed like, all right, they're going to lose 34-0 instead of like 41-0. But,
Did it feel like that, though? It never felt like that to me because the offense was moving the ball.
Yeah, no, that's true. But it was concerning, certainly, when, I mean, they couldn't stop them. And I was surprised that they were able to run the ball, too. I mean, that's – nobody's run the ball against this team. So a lot of things. I
mean, Washington's O-line, they're missing some guys. They're missing their top running backs. So it shouldn't have been that easy for them at times.
And I said in my prediction, I don't care what their record is. I mean, any Ron Rivera team is going to keep fighting. It's just that's who. I mean, this guy played for the '85 Bears. And this guy coached under Jim Johnson, and so. He's got the respect of, I think, everyone who plays for him, and they're going to play hard, and they always do. They always have. They're never, they're not always that good, but I thought, you just like to see the defense just keep fighting and keep grinding as bad as it got. And I thought that drive at the end of the first half was disastrous. I mean,
for a lot of reasons,
they weren't even trying to score. Like the first half of that, they were just trying to get to the locker room up 13-7. And then they got they're like, oh, wait a minute, we can score here. And they ended up hitting a long field goal, but it just can't happen. These are things that can't happen. But certainly shutting them out in the second half. I think they had something like, I have it here somewhere in my notes, 116 yards in the second half. Not many. So, and 0 points, most importantly. So, yeah, look, 5 straight games. They've held their opponent to 18 or fewer points. It's the first time in 12 years they've done that since 2009. I understand who the opponents are. I understand who the quarterbacks are. I understand that if they were facing Pat Mahomes and Tom Brady, that wouldn't be the case, but I don't really care. They've done it, and they certainly faced other bad teams since 2009, so if they're not going to hold Dallas to 18 points, but you're seeing encouraging signs, and especially in the second half. I mean, they've allowed 39 points after the first quarter in their last 5 games. So that's about 8 points after the first quarter. So I don't care who you're playing. That's really good defense, and the fact that they get better in each game, and it's not an ideal way to go about your football season, but. And they certainly won't be able to get away with it Sunday against that team or whoever they play in the postseason. It's something they got to figure out, but it's encouraging that they've gotten through. Hey, score big with the AAA Eagles MVP membership. Now, along with the superb roadside assistance and discounts you've come to expect from AAA, get exclusive Eagles-related perks. For all the details, visit AAA.com/Eagles. Nissan just made your choice for a new car an easier one than ever with their most exciting and fuel-efficient lineup. The choice is yours. Now get great offers across Nissan's full line. Shop your local Nissan store today at nissanusa.com.
All right, Rube, let's finish off this pod. I figured let's just talk some stars of the game. We'll just bounce it back and forth. Give me a star of the game.
Boston Scott. And, I'm such a fan of his. And I don't know how many teams have a third running back. Today he was kind of the second running back. I don't think Jordan Howard was quite healthy. So Boston, carried the load, but he's pretty clearly the number 3 back on this team. I don't know how many teams have a guy that talented. What do you have, 87 scrimmage yards, 2 touchdowns? He's so good in the red zone, in the deep red zone. 14 in his career, 14 career runs inside the 5 and 10 touchdowns. That's the best of any running back in the NFL during that span. Ryan Tannehill is better, and Jacoby Brissett percentage-wise. But as far as running backs, you can't stop him in the red zone because he's got tremendous vision, great balance, great power. He's got that low center of gravity, and he's just like a bowling ball in there. And I like the fact that they threw to him today. That was nice. He's a good receiver. And Aaron really used him in the passing game this year, but he made a couple big plays in the receiving game. So, look, they're out there without Miles and with Jordan Howard at maybe 50%, 60%. I don't know. Didn't practice all week or very little. And Boston Scott, and I love how Boston Scott, there's been games he hasn't gotten a snap. I mean, I don't think he had to carry the first 6 weeks of the season. Never complains. Goes out on special teams, does what he has to do. He's just a great teammate. And when he gets his opportunities, he always seems to make the most of them. I think he's a really valuable guy in this team. And I love the way he played today.
Yeah, and you can tell his teammates so happy to see him have that success. I'll flip to the other side. I'll mention Josh Sweat because I thought that was his best game of the season. Constant pressure, had a sack and a half, also had a couple batted balls at the line of scrimmage. That's what they needed. And in this game, too, they started Ryan Kerrigan because I guess Derek Barnett missed practice all week because of the COVID list, and he comes off at Saturday. And say whatever you want about Barnett, he's a heck of a lot better than Kerrigan is right now. So they needed someone else to play well, and they got that from Sweat. That was a big game.
I'll give you Greg Ward. And everything I just said about Boston Scott, I would say about Greg Ward. Only has 4 catches this year, but his number gets called. He had 2 catches today. The 27-yarder down to the 4-yard line. Great play by Jalen. But, again, another guy. And, these are both guys that have been on the practice squad. Greg Ward's undrafted. I think Boston was a 6 with the Saints. But never complains. Inactive, no targets, no snaps, no reps, doesn't matter. When his number gets called, he answers the bell. And I love that about both those guys. And Greg Ward was big today when they needed him.
Yeah, I'll give you one more, and then we'll get to negativity corner. Obvious one, but I have to say Rodney McLeod again because that's the play of the game. It clinched it. And I know we left some people out. Jalen Hurts had a great game, I thought. But we talked about him so much. I'll give it to McLeod. And we'll go to the negativity corner. Rube, what do you got?
Still some really untimely penalties. They had done better. They'd done better with them, but and you know what? Let me just backtrack to the Stars because we haven't mentioned Avonte Maddox. He was great, and I thought that was a BS call on the DPI. I don't know if he had a better angle on it.
No, it was a bad call. It was a weird call too because it didn't mesh with the rest of the way they called this game.
True. They didn't call until Heineke was like, did all that stuff.
What did they do though?
Yeah, he like basically begged for a call. But I love how Maddox came back on 3rd down and 4th down and got a DPI. Really good plays. Again, this is a guy who he could be pissed about the penalty. It was like 17-yard penalty. It was a big penalty. He could be pissed. He could be upset. He could, he just focused on the next play. And that's like the motto of this team. Next play. Just put it out of your mind. We didn't get the chance to talk to him, but I'm sure that's what he would say. So
yeah, that was impressive because he had the tackle on 3rd down short of the sticks and then 4th down right there to break up that pass. It was impressive. It was a ball don't lie situation.
Exactly. Such a good tackler for a little guy. But as far as negativity, I'll say the penalties first of all. Too many of them, and they all seem to be in key situations. That was, I mean, if you're Jannard Avery, great, you got an interception. You can't push the guy out of the way. Stuff like that. It's a little. I don't know what the final total was. I don't think it was a huge number. Where they might have had like 6 penalties. I'm looking it up. They had 6 for 42. Washington only had 1 for 4 yards. That's come on, seriously. But yeah, it's still a problem. It's still an issue.
Yeah. I'll give you FedEx Field. You can't have stands falling over, and I mean that could have ended the Eagles season.
Yeah,
right there.
You're right. I mean, didn't that happen at the vet at the Army Navy game that one year? With
Gosh,
the
that was I mean, that's what it looked like, and luckily this isn't as high. I'm looking at it now; it's lower. But man, that was scary.
Yeah. Just thank God everyone's okay. But I mean, look, is that the worst stadium in the league?
Yeah.
Used to be the Astrodome. They don't play there anymore. But yeah, it's an awful place. They rushed to build it. I actually liked RFK. Were you ever in RFK? Did you ever go there?
No.
RFK was, it was a beautiful old stadium and had great sight lines and it was great atmosphere. And they were good teams back then. So it was always a great rivalry, Eagles, Washington. But I don't really have a lot for the negativity corner. We talked about the inconsistency in the first half.
I have one. I'll say the sequence at the end of the first half. It was bad all around. Nick Sirianni calling a timeout on 3rd and 1. I mean, Washington's trying to go into halftime, and then you let them score.
Yeah,
that whole sequence was bizarre, and they punted too quick. They could have gotten it down to the 2-minute warning. That whole sequence was messed up, and it gave them 3 points. That it ended up being a pretty close game. So you'd like to see them clean that up.
I will give you one more. I didn't mind the call on 4th and 1, the first 4th down when they didn't get it from the 24. It was in the middle of the first quarter. I didn't mind the play call, but Boston Scott is the best short yards runner in the league. And that's not Jordan Howard's strength. I mean, he's, people think, you just give it to the big physical back. But you want quickness on 4th and 1, short space. Just you need that one burst to get over the line. I would give it to Boston Scott every time on 4th and 1 if you're running it.
And they were in shotgun.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
I didn't like that either. So
I was with you. I liked the decision there. And I know some people didn't like that decision, say that they were like, kick the points. And I see that side of it, but I thought it was a good go for it situation. I just didn't like the play call.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. You got anything else before we wrap this up?
No. Yep. Let's go watch some football.
Yeah, we will be back with you guys pretty soon. If the Eagles end up in the playoffs, we'll do another pod and kind of break down where they've come, where they're going. But for now, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, click the like button and subscribe there as well. For Reuben, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.